DARYL DIXON, episode 3 of season 2. Now, the past 2 episodes, I have been fairly critical of a bunch of silly little things every now and then. Like, it hasn't been a terrible start to the season. Last episode was really goofy with lots of weird things, and just everyone turning bad, because of course they are. And it's a continuation of that this week, but I was actually captivated and very, very engaged with this episode. I don't exactly, know really exactly what they did. They just kept my interest. You know, they paced the episode well enough. It was interesting enough. The dynamics of the characters that Carol was interacting with, Daryl, and the story of more Madame Genet and, you know, her build up. And she's like the main villain that I honestly, we get into Madame Genet here in this episode quite a bit, and she is literally the character that I wanted Major General Beale and them to be in The Walking Dead Ones Who Live. You know, this is literally the character I wanted him to be. I wanted to see, I feel more threatened, and I see her as a bigger threat to our main characters that we love. I see her as a much bigger threat than Major General Beale and the CRM. Now, obviously, within the world of The Walking Dead, the CRM were a much larger threat generally because they had a much bigger military force in the U.S., but they were taken out so easily and now they're just gone. But, you know, in this show, for example, like, we're watching Madame Genet go around just killing people and, you know, taking order. She's taking control, and it's great. I really like her character, and I'm glad she's still sticking around here, at least this season, for the villain going into season 2. So, speaking of Madame Genet, she does kick off this episode, and we get another flashback to when the apocalypse began. So this is her working as a maintenance person at a museum. You got the Mona Lisa behind her there, and we get a little bit of a history on how her world kind of fell apart. So obviously, when you go in a flashback like this, you're going to see the world collapse. She's in this big museum where she works, and the world literally collapses, and she gets stuck inside the museum because that's where they're keeping them, because they can be safe there, and they're literally protecting the art there. That's kind of their main priority of like the security or whatnot, is they're protecting the art rather than the people. Like, they're protecting the people inside. They're safe at the moment. But really, they're really caring about protecting the art, because really they don't know what's happening yet in the world, and they don't want people getting in and getting the art. I kind of get it. This is the one scene. This is not a good way to open the episode, though, because this one scene with her husband, who does come up and he can't get to her, outside the glass windows there of the building. He cannot get to her, and he's outside with all the walkers starting to walk around. Not a good way to open the episode, because this is a really goofy scene. But I really like the episode. So as he's talking to her, through the phone, he's talking to her over the phone through the glass. He's like, they're kind of separated and they say, "I love you," and all that. They're super happy to see each other. They're gonna figure out a way to get to each other. We're gonna figure out what's going on. We're gonna get out of this. And then a walker walks up to him and just bites him. Now, I will forgive walkers and walker bites to people in the beginning of the apocalypse. They have no idea what the hell is happening. They don't know that this person walking up to them that looks all weird and sick is going to come up to them and bite them and rip open their guts and kill them. They don't know that's going to happen. But he doesn't even fight back. It's like, I do notice that quite a bit, even in like the current storyline, where people will just let it almost looks like they're just letting a walker bite them. And there's not a single punch or fight back against the walker whatsoever as they get taken. This guy basically willingly lets himself get taken away from the walkers as she watches. So it's like he just lets himself die. And it was really strange. They really didn't need to do it in that way. But that's the way it happened, I guess. She is devastated, and she's still stuck inside the building. We get a final scene of her looking at the Mona Lisa, and she's kind of like upset, and this is where we start to see her become dark and kind of lose her faith and whatnot, and we'll get into that more in the episode. But that's where the episode cuts to the intro, and then we cut to the modern times in this modern story here with Carol and Madame Genet, and immediately they're putting these two characters together on screen, and Carol comes up with this story that she's been a tourist who got stuck in Paris or in France, and she's now finally made her way to this area, and she's kind of with this group, and she's at this dinner with all of her people. And there's this one really goofy scene again. So the whole episode really starts out with some really weird scenes that I really just didn't need to see. It's Madame Genet taking order, so it was good to see that. It's like, showing her dictatorship in a way. She's not a good person. Although this episode and the scenarios going on with Daryl, I'm half rooting for her in a weird way because she's going after Daryl and, the religious people over there at the nest. And they're not too friendly these days, so I kind of am not going to be too upset if she runs in there and kills all the weirdos at the nest. But at the same time, she's still not a good person. She's still killing people. So it's a weird scenario. But she makes this guy eat his food off the floor when he's starting to mess around with the cook. And he messes with the cook, bullies the cook, and knocks the food off the floor. And she gives an order to eat your food off the floor, Food is precious. And this dude gets down and starts eating the food, like an animal. Really strange scene, but I suppose it was to show order. But man, I didn't need to see that. That was really awkward and weird. Then we cut to the next day. Carol is assigned to work in the kitchen there at Madame Genet's place for the current moment. She's talking with her friend that she met on the truck. As they are walking, they come across this other area where there are different people getting taken to the side against a wall, and they're being shot and killed to be turned into walkers. Now, this is something I did assume would be happening, is they want the freshest walkers possible. So they're testing people out to have the freshest walkers possible to see how strong they can be right after turning and getting that stuff injected into their necks. So some of them do turn, they kill them right away just to test them and see how strong they are. And they say to lower the dosage a little bit. This is all part of her big plan, and we'll see what that big plan is kind of near the end of the episode of what Genet plans to do with these walkers. So I love this stuff. I've mentioned it many times now. I really just want the walker stuff to be the main focus of a story, because I love focusing on the walkers, because that's kind of what this world is. And we seem to sometimes forget that these are the walkers need to be a threat. I really want the walkers to be a big threat again, rather than just bad people all the time. So we catch back up with Sylvie after the last episode where she discovered that Laurent was still at the nest. She's now being kept, in a room, guarded room. So she's being kept captive by Lo Sang and the nest. She easily escapes. So there's this grown man guard, like this full grown dude guarding her room. He opens the door. I don't remember what he gave her, if he gave her like food or whatever. I don't honestly remember. But she strangles him with her necklace, like extremely easy. He just falls to the floor. I found that incredibly unrealistic. Like this guy is just, again, it's almost like a person giving up with a walker bite. He just like gave up. He didn't really fight back, and he just gave up and got choked to the ground. I don't think he died at that moment, but it was still really silly. But Sylvie gets out of the room. She starts running around the place and just like screaming, they're going to kill the kid. They're going to kill Laurent. Where is Laurent? Bring me to Laurent, please. She wants to tell Laurent that they're going to kill him. They're going to make him take a walker bite and see if he lives, because they believe he is the savior of the world within this religion stuff, and he's not going to die from the bite. So they surround Sylvie up on top of this walkway above, and you got Lo Sang down below kind of trying to talk her out of it, and come on down, we'll talk about this. Obviously he's keeping her captive, and they're not really going to talk about a whole lot anyways. But before she can even talk to them and come to some sort of weird agreement here so she doesn't like get attacked by these guys around her, they come after her anyways, and then she just kind of like weirdly stumbles off edge of the building here, and she just collapses onto the ground, and you're not going to live. You're not going to live falling from that height. So Sylvie's dead. So she didn't really get a whole lot in there after finding out Laurent's still at the nest. Her story wrapped up there pretty quickly. Her new boyfriend died last episode anyways. So you know what? What else are they going to really do with her? I thought it was kind of funny. Like she just kind of fumbled off the edge there and just died. Of course she did, and they do use her a little bit later. We'll see. Obviously in this world, everyone becomes a walker. We'll see what happens. But she just dies. So her story's basically done. So we won't see her anymore, and then we cut to Daryl and Isabelle and Falou, one of our few remaining good group of characters that remain. They are making their way to break into the nest. They find their entrance. We got a scene with Laurent taking like this calming medicine from Lo Sang, so he's trying to calm him down and get him all calm and ready for this ceremony where they're going to have a walker bite him. So at the ceremony, here they are. He's going to have a walker bite him. They're going to bring the walker out, and what walker is better than to have the one that just died? Sylvie! So they bring Sylvie, the new walker, out. This is her last moment in the show, and they bring her out to bite Laurent, so then they can show that Laurent is this special kid and he won't die from the bite, whatever, And of course, DARYL, Isabelle, and Falou all made it inside already. They're kind of hidden amongst the crowd, and DARYL shoots Sylvie Walker with a bow that he has and begins the fighting. So he stops the ceremony and the fighting begins. They run off, they hide in between a door, and I will say, man, okay, it is kind of funny that they're hiding behind a door that the guys that are running right behind them wouldn't have checked. I did find that unrealistic, and I also found it a little unrealistic that DARYL is running around with this bow, right? And he's shooting these guys that are literally pointing guns at him, and they're not shooting off their guns in time. None of them, not a single one of them is going to shoot their gun off in time. Meanwhile, DARYL's just running around shooting them with arrows and killing them. Main character energy and main character plot armor right there for sure for DARYL, which is expected, but it is kind of funny sometimes. So DARYL runs off. He's going to kill some more people with his bow. Isabelle, Laurent, and Falou run off, and as Falou and Laurent kind of almost escape, Isabelle gets stuck behind, goes behind another door, which the guys should have checked, but they didn't, because they really don't like to check behind doors when they're looking for people that are trying to escape. But otherwise, Isabelle gets stuck and kind of left behind. And meanwhile, DARYL is off having his own John Wick moment where he's just running around and just killing everybody. I loved this scene. It was really, really cool. It's like a full shot of just him killing all these guys. Very unrealistic. If you really think about it, DARYL is just easily, but he's just going through everybody in this room and just killing everybody with knives and whatever he can find. Again, it's like a John Wick thing. He's getting his moment here to just kill everyone in his sight. And I like it. I loved it. I don't care how over the top it was. I thought the scene was cool, and it was cool to see DARYL get some action in there. So as I said, Falou and Laurent are managing to escape, and Isabelle is still left behind. DARYL does get caught in the end because finally the guns and the people surround him, and he actually can't arrow his way out of this one. So DARYL is captured by the people at the nest. I cannot believe we're dealing with the nest as the bad guys and Genet as the bad guys, and that, dude, it's so many. It's kind of ridiculous. So Carol ends up running into Cadrin at the kitchen, area where all Genet's people are, and I don't know why Cadrin is in that room with Carol. She was like delivering food to all of her, all the people and stuff with the kitchen and the cook. And she sees Cadrin and she's bringing up DARYL, and he says, "I know Dixon. I know DARYL Dixon." And he kind of mentions that I almost had him and whatnot, and he ends up telling her where DARYL is. So he mentions the nest and that building and the big structure that he is at with the people. So he tells Carol where DARYL is. He helps her out. But man, wasn't it convenient that he just happened to be in that room? Like, I don't know why she's keeping him there. It was kind of strange that he's in the same room. As he's obviously not part of her people. He's like a prisoner to her. I don't know why he's not off in some cell or whatnot, but he is there, and he's just sitting on the floor. Carol now knows where DARYL is, and she's going to try and get out of there and go off to try and find him. She says goodbye to her friend, and then we get a scene with DARYL and Lesang. Basically, Lesang just wants to know where Laurent is. He's super hopeful in his faith, and Daryl's like, well, shit, what if your faith is wrong, dude? What if you have your faith in this, he gets bit and he won't die? What if that's wrong? What happens then? Lesang's like, well, what's the point of living then? So obviously Lesang, Mr. Nice Guy that I liked from the end of season 1, is just a full-blown fucking psycho now, and whatever happens to him, I don't really care at this point, but Daryl is kind of captive as well. Carol tries to escape from Madame Genet's place, kind of secretly. She's not really known yet as like an enemy to her. So she takes out a guy easily, of course. She takes a horse, and I don't know why she tried to take a horse to get out of there, because you think it'd be easier to sneak out of there. And, I don't think she was gonna because of what happened, because they were waiting for her, but I don't know why she's trying to run out with a horse. That's going to be quite hard to hide. But she tries to run out with a horse, and Madame Genet gets to her, and once she gets into her office, she realizes that her friend, her little buddy that she met on the car, Carol's friend, gave her away to get his husband back. So he gets his person back. They walk off. Genet and Carol are now in the same room, and Carol has this moment where she's like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to tell her everything. You know, she talks about how I manipulated an innocent man, letting me fly. So she tells everything about Ash. By the way, Ash, we don't see any of Ash in this episode at all. He's just waiting for Carol, I guess, somewhere. So we don't see Ash, but she mentions the whole story of how she got there and who she's even looking for. She knows that she's looking for DARYL. So she tells her about DARYL, but the only thing that she doesn't tell the truth about is DARYL. So at the very end, she tells the whole story and the truth about, you know, Greenland and the ladies that tried to kill her. The only thing she lies about is, I'm there to kill DARYL. I am here because I want to kill DARYL. You know, he did me wrong, and I'm here to kill him finally. You know, he's an enemy to me, and I came all this way because I am desperate to kill DARYL. Only thing she lied about. So we'll see where that gets Carol near the end of this episode, but that is what her plan is for now. She's going to lie to Genet and try to stay on her good side in some way. DARYL's imprisoned. He's locked up now. Carol's now with Genet as they travel to go and get DARYL Dixon and take out the nest, because the nest is now, it's going to be like this big battle, I guess, with the nest and Genet's people. And it should be an interesting battle, by the way, because of what they set up at the end here. But Genet starts to talk about like her anti-religion. She's like extremely against the religious stuff because it didn't help her in the time that she would have needed it when the world fell. So she's like completely against it all, and that's kind of one of her biggest reasons for taking out the nest and all those people, is that she really just doesn't like what they are. And looking at this initially, I would think, okay, Genet's not a good person. She's about to go kill all these good people. Well, we now know that the nest is not full of good people at all. So I really don't care if the people in the nest die. I don't care at all. The only people I care about are Isabelle, DARYL, Falou, Laurent, you know, the good characters really that are left. So we do get a scene with Falou and Laurent. They did escape to their little secret hideout. And then we get this emotional scene with DARYL and Isabelle. And Isabelle does get like a little drain thing as like a little weapon right when she gets put into her, I don't know, shower cell. She's just locked up on the showers there with DARYL. They talk about, you know, the potential of going back to America. They're still trying to be hopeful about, you know, getting out of there, taking Laurent back home to America and getting the hell out. You know, they're trying to keep hope up. And Lassane comes in. He's going to take Isabelle away because he wants to get the information of where Laurent is. He doesn't believe DARYL can help him. So he's going to take Isabelle to try and find out where Laurent is. So he's going to take her and interrogate her. And we're going to see what that is next episode. Now, the ending of this episode is the interesting one. So we've seen Genet testing on all of these walkers for some time now, since last season. And she brings all of her army there, all of her men there to fight. You know, we think she's going to rush in there with all of her people with her guns, and she's going to go and kill all the people at the nest and get DARYL. Well, there's a different plan here. Carol is realizing that they're going to kill everybody there. All of her men, all of her soldiers there are going to get killed because they're going to use the scientist doctor over there, and he's going to inject every single one of them and turn them into super walkers. So instead of them rushing in there and just, you know, a big shootout or whatever, she's going to turn all of her soldiers into super walkers. I cannot wait to see this because I am all in on this crazy walker stuff. I love it. I love seeing it. And I want to see more variant stuff too, because these are very much not variants at this point. They even mentioned that the burner walkers are not really variants. They're like malfunction, like testings that Genet did. So really, we don't really have any variants here in France, at least that we've seen in this show. I don't know if they're going to touch on the stuff that we saw at the end of World Beyond. That show wasn't that good, but they did tease that variant walker. And I don't know if it's really connected. I don't know if we'll touch on it again. I hope we do, though, because I'm as interested in I'm more interested actually in variant walkers than this. But I still love that we're messing around with the walkers and we're going to do some crazy stuff with them. So her plan here is to kill all these people, say you're dying for the greater good, you're going to become my greatest servant, and you're going to go die in glory, you know. And she tells Carol that, I'm going to give you what you want. You're going to go kill your friend. So she reveals to Carol that, yeah, I know that's your friend. I know DARYL is your friend, and she puts Carol into the lineup of people to be killed to become super walkers. So she knew that Carol was lying, and I actually really like that because I'm glad Carol is not running around lying and making up these lies and just being believed by everybody. And I'm glad that Genet is not just blind to that, to those lies from Carol. And she sends Carol into the group of people to be killed. Now, I don't believe Carol to be killed. That's not going to happen. I know that won't happen. But that is kind of the cliffhanger for the episode. And Carol now has to figure out how to get the hell out of this situation. So, as the episode ends, Daryl and Isabel are locked up. We're going to see what happens with Carol as Genet is about to launch an all-out attack on the nest with Daryl and Isabel still in there. Laurent and Falou are still around the area as well. It's going to all converge, and I think this big final battle is really going to happen before the season finale even. I think all this stuff with the nest, I think all the Genet stuff even, maybe not the Genet stuff, but definitely the nest stuff, I think is going to wrap up really quickly here. I think next episode might be it for it, because I know we're going into season 3 here, and we're probably going to get into more stuff. So I think we're going to move on from the nest real soon, and we're going to get into some other situations. I mean, obviously, Carol still has to find Daryl, but I really was interested in this episode. I was engaged. I was very, very interested in this one, and I really liked it. I like all the Walker stuff. You know, I was really curious to see what they were doing with Carol there, because, you know, she was lying her way through, and I'm glad that she wasn't just believed the whole time, and now she's in a very precarious situation that she needs to get out of. I do always love when we go back in the past and see the beginning of the apocalypse. That stuff was always great. I like that scene with Isabel last season. I really like seeing the beginning of the apocalypse stuff. I would love to see more. I always love to see more, and I want some deeper exploration of the Walkers. I will say that always, because I think it's super fascinating. But I think this was the most engaging and interesting episode so far this season, for sure. I think it's all going to come to a crash and close for this particular story. The season's not ending, but I think it's going to all really, it's all coming together this next episode, I think, and we're gonna have to see what happens. But best episode of the season so far. We're only halfway through, but it's definitely an improvement, at least for me. I didn't have as many criticisms as I did the last few weeks. Maybe it's because we didn't have all the weird Carol Ash stuff, you know, running around easily getting there as quickly as they did and all that stuff. Maybe since we're just past that easy point of Carol getting there really quickly, that now we're just in the story of her being there, and it's more interesting now. I don't know. I like Ash, but maybe him not being there made it a little better. I don't know. We'll see. I know we're going to see him again at some point. We have to. But we got a little bit ways to go before that happens. So, DARYL DIXON episode 3. Definitely an improvement. And I'm actually looking forward to next week for sure. It is going to be an exciting one, I hope.